Hello everyone, and welcome to more r/entitled parents. We've got 3 stories for you today. The first one is about entitled parents letting their kids infect old people with COVID. The second one is about a crazy kid on an escalator. And the last one is about an entitled mom getting some sweet karma when she developed the same condition that she insulted someone else about. I hope you all enjoy, and consider subscribing to see future videos. Let's jump into these. So this one is actually a 2-part story. The original was posted a few months back, and then the update to this story was actually posted just a couple days ago, at the time of this video, of course. This one's titled, Entitled Neighbor Lets Her 4 Kids Wander into Elderly Neighbor's Yard, One Coughing. A week later, it turns out the kid's diagnosed with COVID. I'm wondering at this point if humanity is losing brain cells during the pandemic. Like, honest to God. So last week, my mom was chatting with our elderly neighbors who live in the unit next door, socially distanced of course. Our elderly neighbor Jane and her husband Jim have been living there long before my family moved next door, and we're always polite and kind to each other. They even have a little pond with a fountain they once had fish in, until the neighborhood raccoons said otherwise. Long story there. As my mom and Jane were talking, I was on the couch, browsing this lovely site and taking a break from university, when we all hear Jim scream, "What are you doing in my yard?" I rush out to join in seeing what the fuss is, and lo and behold, the kids who live opposite of where I live in a different set of units are running around the pond and making a mess, ages from about 7 to 12. Oh, and one about 9 years old was coughing. Jim screaming at the kids to stop destroying his pond. He had built it with his own 2 hands, and is a retired contractor who's helped keep the units in our section up to date, which he can bill against his rent. And yes, the kids were effing climbing on it and the bushes, and trampling the flowers Jane put around it. And before COVID, my family helped care for them. I knew my sister would be upset because she got them some of those flowers for a Christmas gift. Of course, the kids ignore him, and I run over to help him and get involved while my mom and Jane storm over to the neighbors to get her damn kids under control. From what I learned from my mom while I was helping Jim drag the kids off, I got the 3 who weren't coughing. Jim was already pushing the obviously sick kid away by a long piece of lumber. The lady took offense to that and started screaming at my mom and Jane that my kids can do whatever they want, before her husband started yelling at her, and eventually they all got dragged inside. Jim complained about it, Jane cried over her plants, and my mom and I got our masks and offered to help them fix it, which we did and even improved it. We thought that was it. But no. We found out a week later through the neighborhood grapevine that the 9-year-old kid had COVID and had to be rushed to the hospital. Now my family and Jim and Jane are getting tested and self-isolating, which sucks because I have an approved in-class trip soon, and I don't want to miss out, as it counts towards my degree. Also, my family is more at risk, and I'm scared my sister and my mom will be seriously affected and possibly end up on a ventilator or worse. And I really don't want anything to happen to Jim and Jane either, because they're so nice. Jim actually bought me chocolate ice cream with raspberries a couple years ago when I had my wisdom teeth out, which was really sweet since I was stuck on a mostly soft food and liquid diet. Oh, and that family is getting in deep trouble with the other neighbors. Their house actually got TP'd and vandalized. I can still see the words morons and Trump lovers in red spray paint on the white exterior. They're now painting it over. And continuing on to part 2 of this story. Thankfully, none of my family got COVID, but our elderly neighbors Jane and Jim both did. They struggled for months against the virus, but thankfully both made it out without complications. While they were in the hospital, me and my family was protecting and caring for their landscaped yard. Our entitled neighbors didn't seem to care, even though their son nearly died from COVID. It was really bad. They didn't even quarantine, and they seemed pleased that Jim was no longer there to kick their kids off his yard. But my family did, and things got really nasty. It got worse when Trump lost the election in the States, and they actually let their kids out to tear up Jim's yard. I was told when I shouted at them to get off his yard, "We're just venting because Trump lost." Like, what the heck? And when we told them what happened, they were silent. Then Jim said, "That's it, I'm suing." The next day, he filed a lawsuit against the neighbors for trespassing, deliberate property damage, and emotional damages. That was last week. Needless to say, Jim was not happy to find out they were filing a countersuit and ranted to my dad about it. I think things are going to get nasty because those entitled neighbors can't accept that they're in the wrong. And just to be clear, we're in Canada. All medical hospital bills are covered by the government's general medical plans. Man, what an absolute mess this whole situation is. I feel so bad for those poor elderly people that were just trying to stop their property from getting vandalized, and they ended up getting infected because of it. Also, this should go without mentioning, but I'll say anyway. Just because the story mentions Trump a couple times, don't take that as any kind of political stance by me. I'm just reading the story. I just had to mention that because American politics these days are a very incendiary and divisive subject. With that little disclaimer out of the way, let's jump into the next one. This story is titled, Entitled Mom Lets Her Kid Play on the Escalator, then Yells at Me When I Yell at Her Brat. I know that sounds awful for the entitled brat, but I really can't word it any different. Now to start off, I have irrational fears, and some of them even I think are absolutely stupid, but that doesn't change my completely ridiculous reaction to these things. Things like whales, big tall clouds that look like tidal waves, balloons, and escalators. When I was about 5, I used to jump onto and off escalators for fear of getting eaten by the spiky teeth at the end. My dad, who, let's be honest, was only afraid of the price of a pint, thought as funny as it was, this had to stop. So we waited at the bottom and talked about how it worked until I thought I could do it without the hop. I stepped on fine, but alas, at the end my raggy shoelace got caught and I absolutely panicked my wee brains out. He didn't try again, and I've been merrily hopping on and off for the last 20-something years. Today in the mall, I had grabbed some paint by number kits. I'm a laborer/operator by trade, and of course have gone and pinched a nerve in my lower back. So a few days off work is coming, and I will not stare at the wall the whole time. It hurts bad enough that my partner Jay was holding my handbag, along with the heavier items we'd bought. The entire ride, after my half-hop groan onto the escalator, there was this kid about 7 or 8 running up and down, darting around people, just playing silly buggers. I ignored it as best as I could until we came to the bottom, where the kid was just standing there, staring at the ground, so feet half on, half off the escalator. I said, "Excuse me," quietly. "Excuse me," loudly. And finally, "Oi, kid, move it!" By this time, I'm mildly panicking, backing up as fast as my useless back will allow, with Jay trying his best to get out of the way and take the box out of my hands. The kid just looks at me and doesn't move, so I end up half-hopping past him. His mother is at the end of the escalator and just starts laying into me. How dare I yell at her precious baby? He wasn't doing anything. Now, I'm not the nicest person at the best of times, and I was in nothing but pain, as anyone with a pinched nerve can attest. So I snapped and told her an escalator is not an effing toy. Her kid is blocking the path to not only me, but elderly people, and she had no right telling me what to do if she couldn't even control a child. All of a sudden, the security guard was there. I was thinking a mix between "oh bollocks" and "how the F did he get here so quick?" Turns out, he had already spoken to entitled mom about letting her kid run amok in the mall. And this was the final straw. "Get your kid and get out," the security guard said. The look on her face was like someone had stuffed a lemon full of razor blades, then shoved it right where the sun doesn't shine. She started yelling at him instead of me, thank God, and security guy gave me the "you can go" wave. We could still hear her yelling when we walked out the doors a good 200 meters away. So not super dramatic, but by God, lady, set a better example. You can definitely tell by the way OP wrote this that he or she has had their fair share of these people and is absolutely sick of it, but I can definitely see where OP is coming from. This next one is titled, "My mother's insults towards my girlfriend were turned against her as she developed the same condition she insulted her about." In case you weren't familiar with my previous posts, I've been dating my girlfriend Eva for almost 3 years now. She's the most beautiful and amazing person ever. However, my mother doesn't see her quite the way I do. The things my mother hates about her and constantly insulted her about are how she looks, a skin condition vitiligo affecting her entire body, including face, foreign ancestry with Muslim family members, and her cheeky and petty no crap taken, no F's given character. Most insults were about vitiligo though, which for me, of course, is something beautiful. I of course have always done my best to protect her from my mother's BS, and I always will. It is one of the main reasons why I wanted to move out in the first place. I blocked her, we changed social media and numbers, and I never exactly hesitated to counter her hurtful crap using my own hurtful crap. Well, a week ago, I was told by my father that my mother wants to talk to me and Eva about something important. I refused to start any kind of contact. However, a few days later, both Eva and I were contacted by my mother, who after months made the effort to find our new social media accounts. The content of her messages first shocked me. Then I remembered what Eva told her during one of the arguments. Something along the lines of, "I really wish you went through what I did." Eva basically suffered years ago because of the aforementioned vitiligo. Then I realized it. Karma hit her hard. In the messages, she said that she understands what Eva has gone through, now that she has white patches around elbows, knees, and hands. I told Eva about it, who found out that my mother messaged her as well. At first, she suggested that we send her screenshots of her previous hurtful messages. It took 2 posts on Reddit and a few days of thinking and talking things through with Eva to figure out the best thing to do. All the while, my mother was constantly messaging us, which we ignored. We decided against sending the screenshots as it would be pointless drama mongering and my mother might use it against us. Thank you, Reddit. So this is what I wrote back in return. "I'm sorry that happened to you and that now you know what it's like. But to me, it comes off like you're only apologizing because your insults are now turned against you and you realize how hurtful it is. This doesn't change anything. Leave us alone." I immediately blocked her after that. And this is what Eva wrote back to her. It sucks realizing that the worst crap you said now applies to you, right? I hope you now realize how hurtful it is. Or should I remind you? She also blocks her as well. We're still awaiting results. All I gotta say is good for them. I understand that it can be hard to push people out of your life when they're family, but sometimes it's completely necessary in order to be happy. Some people, even if they're family, can be toxic as hell and do nothing but make your life harder. So good for OP and his girlfriend for doing what they feel like was best. This was r/EntitledParents. As always, if you enjoyed, drop a like and subscribe to see more. Thank you so much for watching, all you fine people, and I'll see you next time.